met a guy named Jim Howard who introduced me to the gi, and immediately I hated it, right? To take somebody and staple them to the mat like they're nothing, even though they have like a background in something, was infuriating. And at the same time,
Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu Syndicate, episode number 6, A Quiet Professional. Retired Senior Chief Petty Officer and Navy SEAL of 21 years, 24 years total in service, combat veteran, loving husband, dedicated father, brother, professor, coach, mentor, best friend, director of programs, and a Jiu-Jitsu black belt, first degree. Welcome, Dwayne DeSchon. Finally, we're making this happen.
nice, thanks for having me.
Yeah. We had a great weekend rolling. You taught me some good lapel stuff. You were a part of our academy's semi-annual graduation. You got to watch me belt up my son again. And one of our mutual colleagues got his blue belt. I'm glad you're here. So, where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Winchester, Virginia, northern part of Virginia, probably like 2 hours outside of DC. Yeah, I grew there. Pretty much quiet life for the most part. I don't know, man. That's pretty much it.
And you enlisted in the Navy in what year?
2000, July 7th, 2000.
July 7th, 2000. So pre 9/11. Did you go in like the Dive Fair program, or how did you know you wanted to be a SEAL?
Funny part is that I didn't until after the Navy recruiter kind of overheard me talking to the Marine Corps. That was my original direction that I was going to go. I was in talks with them, and the Navy recruiter had overheard that I wrestled, did cross country, track, and was like, "Hey, it sounds like you're somebody who likes challenges." And he was correct in that. He explained to me what a SEAL was and what the program was, and was like, "What do you think?" And I was all about challenges at the time and went after it. The best part is that I'm somebody who, over the years, even as a kid, if you tell me that I can't do something, I'm going to do everything in my effort to prove you wrong. So, yeah, graduated, left off for boot camp, went to my A school, and then about 8 months after that, I went to Bud's class 236, made it through Hell Week, made it through my what's called a pool comp, and then of all things failed the tread. This is an evolution where you have to utilize the tanks, keep your hands above water for 5 minutes. You have weights on. You can't put your hands underwater. And then after the end of that, you have to swim across and back with everything. Weighed a whole lot, in like 135 pounds back then. And surprisingly, it's a lot of technique, but yeah, I failed that. Unfortunately, too, there was no opportunity, which is typically offered to guys, to get rolled back to the class behind you and get another shot at it. The class behind us had an issue with their orders and let a lot of people in at the time. And so what they offered me was that I could either A, try out for SWIC EOD right out of the gates, or come back a year and a half later and try back out for SEALs, or just go to the fleet. I wasn't going to the fleet in terms of staying there, and I sure as hell wasn't going to SWIC or EOD. No offense to my brother there, great guys, but that's not what I came in to do. So then what I did was left for essentially military police school, did that, left for Iceland, of all places. Was actually supposed to go to Italy with my friends, and somehow got redirected. Went up there, spent a year and a half getting ready again for Buds, came back, and then this time made it all the way through. That was in 247, roughly 2003, 2004 time era. And then from that point on was with the teams from there.
So you went to 2 Hell Weeks.
Yes.
Brief, you can look on the internet and find a plethora of information on buds and what it takes to be a Navy SEAL. Not many people could do it. It's nearly almost impossible for someone to say, I want to be a Navy SEAL and actually do it. So I don't want to talk about, you know, the SEAL teams in the community, but for the purpose of this conversation, I am going to kind of dive back and forth because I want to know, in your opinion, Jiu-Jitsu and being a Navy SEAL, how they're kind of interchanged with one another, and also the military. And I don't mean any respect to any fellow brethren or certainly the SEAL community at all. You know, but it does take a certain mental mindset. You know, 21 years as a Navy SEAL is a long time. That's almost, you know, you take some black Jiu-Jitsu black belts, they've been in the game 21 years. That's a mental mindset, I think, also. Currently, you're Director of Programs for the Honor Foundation. Can you briefly tell us what that is?
Yeah, so right now, the Honor Foundation is a nonprofit organization that deals with taking SOF members or Special Operations Forces members, so whether that's Army, Air Force, Navy, or Marine Corps, and having them transition or preparing them for their transition from the military to private sector. I run the Virginia Beach campus. I help guys mainly in our area, SEALs, SWIC, EOD, and then our combat support and combat service support individuals. And I help them, again, connect the dots on how their transition is going to go and what the private sector is going to be looking for. And so we do that through a 12-week long program, getting them all prepared for everything. And more often than not, they come out of it feeling very ready to go, that they don't feel it as much as that the stressors are on them the whole time after they've come through. And it's a great way to stay connected to my community without having to be a contractor in one of the places that they work or whatnot. So still connected to the community, and it's a great way to help them out. I don't want to say the term give back because I'm not necessarily giving back. All I'm doing is helping in that regard. And so that's currently what the program is.
So you're basically Director of Operations on and off the mats.
If you can put that comparison, sure, yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what got you into martial arts? What did you had mentioned you trained Kung Fu and some Taekwondo early on?
So I didn't necessarily do the Kung Fu. My brothers and sisters did Taekwondo and Kung Fu. I wrestled from pretty much my 4th grade year on. But because my brothers and sisters were doing a lot of the martial arts stuff, I was still there doing it. I was doing kicks and all the things that Taekwondo does and the stretches. I wasn't in the discipline, but it was awesome. I also grew up in an era when UFC was coming on board and you had Pride and K1 and all these other things. You know, before that it was just watching Mike Tyson knock people out, you know, in 12 seconds after you spent $70 on pay-per-view. But after getting into wrestling, I fell in love with the combat, the aspect of two people just showing their strength in a skill set, right? And so as I moved forward with a lot of things, stuck with wrestling, and then I grew in love with Muay Thai and utilizing that in a self-defense manner, being able to protect myself or others, which is awesome. I was never a very big guy growing up. Came out of high school, a whole whopping 135 pounds, and then not until my time in Iceland that I jumped up to like 175, 180, and then as I was training, dropped down to 165. Sat there for the longest time, but somebody whose size was always an issue, so to say. I had to be somebody who could hold my own, and so that was one of the reasons of getting into it. And then when I went to the military, I had that thought that like everyone else does, and that we're always going to be in the hand-to-hand combat, and that you should have to know those things. And obviously that's not the case, but it was still something that I was very passionate about and enjoyed. And then again, it does have a place. To be able to hold your own is huge. But as I was going through, I was doing a lot of grappling with some guys, no-gi type stuff, but it was never at the level of what it is today. It just wasn't available back then. We didn't have
This is
videos.
why you're in it prior to you.
Take your pick. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like,
All right.
so while I was prior to, again, we had UFC coming out, but there was nothing to go back and watch it. Like, you had to get DVDs or something, right? And then you would watch that, or you get Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt magazine and order the videos in the back, right?
Yeah.
But that was where most of our stuff came, was magazines and then what we saw on TV from those guys. Because not a lot of schools were available back then in that discipline of Jiu-Jitsu. Hell, even Muay Thai wasn't readily available for a lot of places. It was mainly Taekwondo, Kung Fu. Because again, growing up in an era of Karate Kid and, you know, Saturday Morning Kung Fu and Bruce Lee and everything else. So you had those things that were all around. But I really where I learned my disciplines was from wrestling. I mean, the dedication and discipline that it takes to be a wrestler is amazing. So having that foundation was awesome. But again, as we move forward, I got into grappling, no-gi type stuff, a lot of guillotines, a lot of rear naked chokes, you know, some arm bars maybe. And then in 2007, 2008-ish, I met a guy named Jim Howard who introduced me to the gi. And immediately I hated it, right? To take somebody and staple them to the mat like they're nothing, even though they have like a background in something, was infuriating. And at the same time, I fell in love with it. It was like, I have to know more.
Yeah.
And
where was this at?
This was in the military. This was back in Virginia Beach.
Okay.
As I was going to another team that I was working with. And again, this guy was very adamant about teaching it. And he made it mandatory for all our new guys to learn it. And I even though I was a new guy, I was like, I'm going to learn this. And having a great teacher as himself. So at the time, Jim was a brown belt. And if I'm not mistaken, Jim, I'm sorry if I don't remember correctly, but I believe he was a Carlson Gracie Jr. black belt or brown belt. He had come up through those ranks. And then as he was going through the military, he could just find gyms that he could, you know, escalate his game and belt structure. Because I know that he had gotten his belt, his black belt, while in Virginia Beach through one of the other academies. Went on deployment, and all we did for that entire deployment was work out, get after it on our operations, and then do jiu-jitsu. We had a whole crew of guys. We even went as far as to build out our own mat space where we put down tires and then like a false floor so that they would actually, you know, take the brunt of throws, like judo throws or takedowns and everything. Mats, the walls were lined with all the mats. We had hooks to hang our gis up in. It was our own personal dojo, and it was amazing. And so having that whole time frame to build on foundations was what happened. And in fact, at the end of that deployment, Jim had straight up did a belt testing on us and gave our blue belts to us.
Nice. And what year was this?
2008,
wow.
2009. So that would have been 2009. So 2008 was like doing all the workup and doing all the rolling. On deployment, we did actual foundational principles and how we train. And then again, at the end of it, he's like, hey, here's how we test. You should be able to do these things. Setting a standard, and then gave us our blue belts. And from there, came back from deployment. Jim introduced me to where I've been for the last pretty much 16 years, and that's Tidewater Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with Jonathan Warts and Dan Gleaton.
Great academy, man.
It's amazing. I've learned so much there. You know, we're an academy that welcomes all people, and no one. It's not a sorry. There's nothing there at that academy that is established of like, you wouldn't walk in there and be like, this is their game. Every person has their own personality and their own game that they play.
For sure. And
that has made us, you know, we're not world champions, but I guarantee you, like if someone walked in that gym, they'd probably be like, wow, this is awesome. And yeah, it's been great being under them. I picked up my black belt in 2021. After we came back, after you and I met, I was 2-stripe brown belt, started rolling with some of my guys, and they were like, whoa, like, how long have you been a brown belt? And told them, and then that same time, they gave me my black belt. And you and I had that conversation, like, I didn't feel like I deserved it at the time, no offense, Jonathan, I really didn't feel like I thought I was going to get another strike or so and have time to iron out some of mine, what I felt were issues and really hone in on some skills. But instead, what it did was really make me focus on those areas. We got together with Dan. We ironed out a lot of things to make it feel like I was ready to be wearing that belt appropriately. And yeah, and then about 6 months later, I felt confident that I should be wearing that thing.
We deployed forward together in 2019, and I remember seeing you in the DFAC. For those of you that don't know, DFAC's like a mess hall or the chow hall, and I see a people, and I see this one guy, and all I focus in on is a Tidewater Jiu-Jitsu lanyard, and me and a young lieutenant, we're both blue belts at the time, was like, oh, hey dude, there's a guy that does jiu-jitsu. We were running a jiu-jitsu club. I think him and I were the only, there was a white belt, one of our pilots was a white belt, Lucas Lepre guy, and we were like, hey man, we have this jiu-jitsu club, we meet certain days of the week, we're wondering if you want to, we see your Tidewater Jiu-Jitsu to train, and you're like, I dabble. I'm like, well, hey man, come meet us at the gym. We've set up, we've procured mats, and it's really good to kind of keep our skill level up. And I remember walking away and turning around and going, hey, just out of curiosity, what belt are you? And you're like, I'm a 2-stripe brown belt. And I'm like, oh, cool, man. Do you want to run the program? And you ended up really running a phenomenal program. You really took what Gleason and I were doing and completely scrapped it. Well, you didn't completely scrap it. You used what we were doing and you brought it back to the fundamentals. Right. And it's a lesson I learned because fundamentals really does, at the end of the day, fundamentals wins wars.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And you can apply fundamentals to everything. And you actually gave me my first stripe on foreign soil vis-a-vis with my professor Norman, who now you're really good friends with, which I think is awesome. Jiu-Jitsu is decades. It's like unlike any other martial art, right? You see Taekwondo, you see, Ryokushin karate, and you see 12-year-olds that train 3 or 4 years that get their black belt. You see adults that train 3 or 4 years and they get their black belt. And no doubt that's very difficult to get because it takes discipline to stick with something for more than a year. But in totality, you've been doing jiu-jitsu for 17 years, and you've been a black belt for 3 of those years, and you got your first degree a year ago. That's someone's career. That's how long it takes to get to that level of jiu-jitsu, right?
If they want to, yes, I think that, and granted, there are always going to be phenoms and exceptions to the rules like we always talk about, but I would say that the average time frame for someone to pick up their black belt's roughly 13 years. Like that's dedication and time spent, and so when you hear about it from jiu-jitsu practitioner after practitioner, and that is our belt system is different, right? Like you do not put that thing like there's a certain level that you're going to be at. Like you expect a person to know foundational principles. You're going to expect them to know how to defend, whether that's top, bottom, side control. Take your pick of position. Take your pick of technique. Like we should know where these things are all going to go and how to defend them. And at that point, that's why we always talk about it's a game of inches. It's who gets there first.
We just belted up a 15-year-old blue belt who is absolutely phenomenal. Won his division in Naga. By all means, any other martial arts, he'd be a black belt. For sure. That kid's been training since he was 6. Right? But it's funny because now he has just entered the beginning gates of blue belt jiu-jitsu. Right? And by the time he's at his black belt, within the jiu-jitsu community, he's going to be a black belt.
Oh, he's
right.
As long as he sticks with it.
As long as he sticks with it.
That's the hard part. Is he going to burn out? It depends on how much he does it. He's also going to have other life things such as school that
Yeah.
he's going to have to deal with, job as he moves forward. So it's, will he continue to find the time to stick with it? I hope so. I really do. Because he will feel disappointed. I guarantee it later down in life if he's like, I should have continued to pursue those things.
Oh, that's with anything, sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your mental mindset. Mental mindset with you guys and your community. That's a podcast in itself. I mean,
there's plenty of them.
That's
watch someone else who wants to talk about.
That's been studied, right? The certain physiology, and neurology of it. If you weren't in the teams, let's say life happened after your first time fail at Buds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is first time fail, right? 2 hell weeks, that's ridiculous. Had you not went back into the teams or went back and overcome that adversity, do you think you'd still be where you're at jiu-jitsu wise today? I know that's hard to say.
I don't think it's mentality. When I reflect on that, I don't think that it's the mindset. I think there are plenty of people who are not team guys, who are phenomenal jiu-jitsu athletes. They are phenomenal. They have no quit in them, right? I think I would still have no quit in me, but do I think that I would be able to take and dissect the things that we do in the manner that I do now? No. The teams allowed me to take things and break them down and understand efficiencies, understand how to teach, understand where we're looking at, and put that in a direction to go and move forward. So I think that's what the teams really gave me, was that ability to really take this portion of it and look at it and be like, okay, where's the inefficiency? Where's it at? Where do I need to work on? And systematically break it down for me and go, okay, at this belt, I should be learning these things. Or at this belt, this is what I'm going to do. And set miniature goals, so to say. Again, the goal is the belt, but what do I need to learn within those belts?
Sure.
To be the level that I felt that those belts represented for our academy.
In many ways, one can say jiu-jitsu it juxtapositions the military in the fact that there's a uniform presence, whether you're in gi or no gi. There's a culture clique. There is people you meet that you would have never met elsewhere, jiu-jitsu, right? And I think the only difference is the stolen valor aspect of it. If you put a belt on that you haven't earned through time on these mats, or if you say you do jiu-jitsu and you haven't, you will get got. You cannot fake it.
Especially at I would say purple and up. Blue belt, it's hard.
8-month white belt and up.
Right, but we've talked about standards. So at that person's academy, they might be a purple belt. You come to our academy, you're more like a blue belt.
We'll delve into that, but I went on a tangent. Yeah. Go back to the military jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. So you asked, is it similar? It's absolutely similar, other than the fact of the war mindset.
And you don't get paid.
But again, some guys are on the mat to be warriors. Some guys are on the mat to learn self-defense necessarily. Some guys are on the mat to just get a workout in. Some guys are on the mat to just better themselves. And jiu-jitsu will do all those things for you, for sure. But yes, I would say, plain and simple, there are definitely similarities. Like you said, the biggest one to me is the idea of meeting people that you necessarily wouldn't have met if you were outside and just being yourself.
When did you start wanting to elevate? At what level? At what belt level? Or what years were you like, what, I want to elevate this to where I'm the best jiu-jitsu practitioner I can be, and one day I want to teach.
And I always chased the next standard. It doesn't necessarily mean the next belt. Just to me, it was the next standard. Yes, the belt kind of hand in hand kind of came into it because it gave me the goals to go for certain things. As far as when, I would have to say that it was always there within jiu-jitsu because that's how the teams were. The teams at the time were you should always be looking to be the best you in the teams. You should always be looking to correct inefficiencies. I was doing that in Jiu-Jitsu without even realizing it, because I was already taking what we were doing there and implementing it into that situation. So it wasn't like a conscious decision to be like, oh, I needed to approach it in this manner. And it wasn't until, 3-4 stripe blue belt, that I was really adamant about teaching, because again, constant deployments, constant workups, I had to find crews. The problem with that though is at that level, the people that I was teaching are brand new, and it's like a hard reset every time. Now granted, it gave me a super strong foundation of certain things, but it was hard to progress. And so every time I'd come back, I'd have to get in there and work super hard with all the guys in our gym. And again, I'd come back and see guys that I've been rolling with in the next stripe or belt and be like, I should be where they are. Like we were both doing these things. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I'm a big proponent of competition, so it's just me internally competing with myself and those around me, whether they knew it or not. They pushed me. That's why training partners exist, and that you do get better. But as far as being a decision point, there was never a decision point, because again, I was already implementing those things.
Sure.
You asked that question, I had to look back at it and think about it. But it was already happening.
You had mentioned standards, and you had mentioned foundation. I want to know what Professor DeSchon's standards and foundations are in Jiu-Jitsu.
Some of the foundations aren't even Jiu-Jitsu related. They're going to be mindset stuff, effort, attitude, the ability to be coachable or teachable. Those things right there are foundational mindsets that you should have, that will help you progress as someone's trying to help you and teach you. You come in with the wrong attitude, no one's going to want to train with you. If you don't bring effort, you're never going to get better. If you don't come with the ability to learn or be teachable, then no one's going to want to teach you, and you're not going to progress. So those are things that I instill in the kids. And then you kind of talked about uniform. I like to have the kids looking sharp when they're done. Put your belt back on. Get your gi straightened up. Look like you're ready to go. Be prepared. Now, if we're talking about foundational principles in the actual sport itself, it depends. We've got each area, guard, open guard, closed guard, mount, side control, half guard. I feel that there are standards and foundations in each one of those things. And that's what's shitty about a white belt. Everyone's always asking, like, what should I learn? You need to learn it all. At the beginning, you need to understand what these things are, what these positions are, and learn those. And then the foundation should be things like pressure, or where does my pressure need to be? Like we always get this is side control, right? Side control are knees tight, hand behind the arm, and hand under the arm. And I got this nice tight side control. But that is traditional side control. I'd much rather you understand what your weight is and distribution. And that to me, so like you and I have done it where you'll get in a position and I'll be like, that's not where, like there's no pressure.
Oh
like,
yeah.
You need to shift up, turn this direction, right? So teaching guys right out of the gates is also a foundational thing to me. Not just a blanket statement of this is side control. Like that's an incorrect statement to me. So I look at standards in that regard and go, okay, I wish I had someone teaching me at that point. I'm going to get you the right standard. The standard is solid foundation. I know what weight balance distribution is. I know how to control somebody. I know what to do in this situation, this one. And then from there, as you progress forward, it's the standards of frames and grips and movement, hips and flexibility, whatever those are. Like those are the next set of standards to me.
Are one of your standards you must compete to belt up, or if you show me the standards that I'm
For me, you don't need to compete. Like we're watching you in the gym. We're rolling with you. Like, not everyone needs to compete. Is it nice to be like to test your skills against other people who don't know who you are, what your game is? I think yes, but again, that's a choice. Like not everyone wants to compete. That's a lot of pressure on some people to tell them they have to compete. Like not everyone's a competitor, and that's okay. But on the mat in our academy, you can get to compete with all those guys, especially in times like that's what open mat is for. That free rolling times to test those skill sets and see where we're at. In our academy, you're constantly being observed. Like we don't do the cool. You did 6 months. Here's a strike. Oh, here's another 6 months. Here's a strike. We are evaluating. We're rolling with you, and we know what a certain level individual should be, and you're showing us those things. You'll get your strikes when they come. And I honestly think that people feel like it's more rewarding at that point. Yes, there are those who are like, I was here, I've been here, I should get a strike. And you're like, dude, this isn't a participation trophy. Like, you get it when you earn it. And when you hold people to those standards, it's more rewarding for them. And then again, you'll get the quality out of the gym versus quantity.
Sure. A lot of people that watch this podcast are older guys, family men, professionals. What are you looking for in a guy that starts? He meets all your standards. He exceeds some here. He exceeds some there. The dude can only train maybe twice a week. I mean, the typical guy that has a family, a 401k. He may be an IT guy. He may be a surgeon. He may be, director of marketing company somewhere, director of operations. What do you look for in a guy like that?
If that's the case, I'm looking for a guy who's willing to, again, learn. He knows he doesn't have a lot of time. So if I'm giving you the advice to fix things, during that duration of time that you're there, you need to work on fixing those things. If you're doing that, then you will progress.
Yeah.
If you're not, then dude, you're gonna sit there and continue to do the same thing over and over again. And I listen to guys sometimes who are like, I don't understand why I'm still getting this, because you refuse to listen to what we're telling you. And sometimes we've literally shown those guys, like, again, I'm a big advocate of, I don't care if you're a white belt or a black belt, I'm rolling with everybody. I roll to the level of that individual, and typically, when I'm rolling with lower level individuals, I'm in the middle of like a roll, telling them to fix things as we go. I think that's a way better approach. It's in the moment. Yeah, sometimes guys get frustrated, like, just roll, and you're like, yeah, but you perpetuating that same thing doesn't do you any good. So let's fix the problem now, move on, and implement it while we're doing this, and I can tell you whether or not it's implemented correctly. And then if guys take that on board, yeah, man, they'll progress just fine. And even doing those short twice a week or even once a week, guy comes in and he's still focusing on those things, and you'll tell too, because those guys will be like, oh, I remember him talking about this. A lot of those guys will go home and watch things.
I did.
Right?
For
They'll
sure.
go home and be like, oh, he was talking about lasso. I need to see, he gave me a name to watch for lasso too. And they'll look it up and come back in and be like, hey, I have questions. You're like, so now you're inquisitive. That's another great attribute, right? Question things.
Sure.
And then again, that willingness to want to learn about it, you'll go far.
Is it safe to say it's almost the same thing for your 20-year-olds, the 20-year-old athletes?
It's the same for everybody.
Yeah, that's the standard, man.
It's the same,
right?
exactly. That's why it's
That's
like,
the standard.
it
That's
doesn't
the
matter who
important
you are,
standard.
our kids or our adults. Like you see it in the kids. The kids ask questions. They are inquisitive about things. We reward them at times when they're bringing the right attitude and the right effort towards things. We tell them at the end of the class, like, we saw you do that. Good job. It's funny because in teams we don't do a lot of praise. So to get used to doing that, it's been like, oh, yeah, I should probably tell that person they're doing a good job. Because in the teams, it's always just constructive criticism.
Constructive criticism.
It's a difficult thing to do. We give it to teams, but not necessarily the mats. So that's been the good thing for me. Like, being around that community has allowed me to get back to that. Oh yeah, these are the way I should probably be treating people. Like, they're not all team guys. They're not gonna I'm not gonna be able to tell them something. They're just gonna run and go fix it. You have to be patient. So I know I'm working on that, both at home and on the mats. But again, that watching a person take that advice and apply it and run with it and then progress, that's
a win.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And again, it's cool because I'm not doing it for myself. Like, it's not like, oh, I need this high or anything. It's like, it's just nice to see. It is like, I give the advice because I want advice. If you take it, then that's cool. If not, whatever, I'll move on to the next person and hopefully they'll take it. Like, but yeah, it is very cool to see someone accept it and run with it and then continue to grow.
How are you with, as far as stand up, the ability to be able to throw hands when needed in order to get them to a position where you can control them? Is that something that you want all of your students to be proficient in? Like Norman.
No, I love Norman's Academy. Our academy is Jiu-Jitsu. We don't do a lot of hand throwing, combative type situations. It is more sport Jiu-Jitsu, but it obviously can be applied to real world scenarios.
Oh, for sure.
As much as there's those individuals that are out there that Jiu-Jitsu doesn't work in real world situations. Okay, if you say so. I'm a big component of understanding what the environment you're in is, right? So like in the military, in those situations, throwing hands and knowing when to do that, escalating a situation, being able to handle yourself. Like I'm not gonna throw kicks in a real world situation because that's gonna risk me getting taken down or, you know, over committing and getting turned and somebody being able to take me down. Those are things like I've been able to apply different things. So I see a situation in the real world, right? I'm gonna not turn my back at people. Like again, there's multiple things that come into play when we're dealing with that. But I would say that in our academy, as much as I would love to see it, kind of like, again, I love Norman's approach to it.
Yeah.
I really do, especially when you look at kids and where they're progressing to and the confidence they have and knowing that they can handle themselves. And that's only going to escalate as they move forward in life and stick with it. Our kids, yeah, they're probably going to take you down. They're going to do Jiu-Jitsu, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're taught.
Your oldest, his stand-up's phenomenal. His takedowns are legit. Even your youngest one is ridiculous. Like, you know, you actually need to be careful because if you're not careful with Talon or Cade, they'll get you.
Oh, it's even worse as a dad because the two of them will team up against me, and they got the principles down now to where like one will attack my grip while the other one's attacking an arm.
Yeah.
And they'll start looking for rear naked chokes and stuff, and you're like, I'm so glad you're not as strong as like you could be right now.
Yeah.
The two of them. So the kids they can implement certain things.
Sure.
Like they're getting down to a point because at first they didn't have those things, and not because we don't teach a lot of it, we don't do a lot of stand up. It's just that when we were getting ready to compete, we had game plans.
That was my next question. Actually statement, because I think there was a guy that was getting ready to compete when I was training at your academy. He was doing nothing but, hey, stand up, get to the ground, a takedown, or defending grips.
Yeah.
Like
It's a different area. Know your environment, right? That's
Sure.
kind of where we're headed with it. It's know your environment. Competition is different from being in there and rolling 6-minute rounds with everybody, right?
Yeah.
It's different when I'm out on the streets. It'd be different if I'm working. Like understanding where to implement portions of your jiu-jitsu into those situations or your stand-up or anything else, that's what makes you different. And that's definitely as you escalate into new belts and other things, you start looking at things and looking at it and be like, oh yeah, I don't want to put myself in that position. I don't want to do this, or I know how to handle that. And it's good, and those makes you confident. And more often than not, I think Greg mentioned it, right? Like the guy who knows things de-escalates it.
Yeah, for sure.
They know what can go wrong on both sides.
Yeah.
Like again, we don't know how many people that person knows in that area. We don't know if they have something on their person. At the same time, I know how well I can choke you the fuck out, or break your arm, or do these things, and I don't want to do that to you. So again, most guys are like, hey man, like this isn't worth it. Like this is gonna cause some problems on both sides of the house that we don't want. But it's understanding your environment in that situation.
Speaking of your environment, when you were active duty, you guys get trained in, I'm sure you get trained in close quarter combat, right? Hand to hand combat, right?
Yeah, we do have a combatives program, and it's grown over the years. It's not like Marsoc's program that they have. Ours is more of again, we're really going to see hand to hand in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So it's dealing with compliant, non-compliant individuals as you're clearing, and it's also talk about getting back behind a portion where you and your buddy, because again, in the house, we don't typically do things alone. And so it's always getting back and supporting. How do I get back to support? How do I support my buddy if he's the one in that situation? But yes, we are taught a certain level of it. Not a lot of kicks. Again, it's usually our combatives programs, some strikes, how to use what you have on you, and then getting off the ground and getting back up.
And my other question was, there's a lot of good funding. I know for like free fall, Halo, they'll bring civilian parachutists in to really teach professional, athletes to, help guys specifically in soft communities. Did they ever bring in, like, the Ranger Regiment, they bring in Gracie, Henner, Gracie, did they bring in like, hey, today, we've got this black belt that's going to teach you guys combatives, or is it more of an internal kind of, hey,
it's more of an internal, and then also command dependent. So it just depends where you're at, if they have that funding to bring people in, but for the most part, it's a internal training, which sucks because some guys they're assigned into the combative role. They go and they learn the program, but they're not proficient individually. They learn, they had the JQR job qualification, right? That they had to turn around and learn. That doesn't mean they understand it. So unfortunately, you get individuals who are teaching people that don't need to be teaching people.
Sure.
But luckily in the teams, you've got guys who have their own hobbies, their love for the sport, and take it upon themselves to show other guys what right looks like, which is huge.
Yeah.
So for the most part, I don't think there's a platoon out there that doesn't have somebody who's into jiu-jitsu that could be like, that's not going to work. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. Like, don't do that.
You told me that last night.
I did not say that.
You mentioned support. I think the biggest support is your family. You're a family man, loving father, like I said in the introduction. You've been married. What's impressive, you've been married 20 years.
It is impressive for the teens. Thank you, babe. I appreciate you, sticking with us.
How supportive is your wife?
Of jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
Very. I mean, the kids do it as well. I think that she has realized over the years how beneficial it can be for them as well. Getting them out there and putting them in uncomfortable situations. And I think that as they get older, they're going to realize that that's applicable to all sorts of different things in life. Again, things are perspective based. They're going to get out in the real world and be like, I've been in much worse situations. This is not an issue.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll be calm about it and look at it and be like, how do we solve this problem and move forward? So, I think she's been very beneficial, or not beneficial, but very supportive of it.
Yeah.
I think so when I'm gone, she's taking the kids, making sure they get there and go through it.
What are some of the things you're working on now? What is in your repertoire? Now that you've settled in, you finally got your black belt. Now you're a first degree. You're seasoned, well seasoned. What's Dwayne DeSchon working on?
My main thing is, if I'm on the top game, it's pressure and making sure I'm not giving any of it up. If it's a bottom game, it's disruption. As you saw earlier today, the goal is to not let people settle. I don't care what your size is. Like some of those guys that you have are some big boys, but I've come to realize that if you let them settle, it's not going to be a good thing for you. And so my thing that I've been working on mainly is immediately moving to the next thing without that pause and allowing them to figure out or start going the route they want to. So just disrupting is a big one. And then obviously the space and the nuances of why do the things work the way they do. I've got a buddy that unfortunately he's been a white belt for a very long time, and that's just because he got out of it for a little bit and then he hurt his knee, now he's back. But I've been doing one-on-ones with him, and it's been helping me identify certain things even in my game that I didn't realize I did. And now that I'm aware of those things, I can be more, not just efficient, but I can look at it and be like, where do I take this based off of that or this? And now I can progress and refine it. And again, at that point, we're taking the space out of it. And that's what makes the higher belts very difficult, right? They're they don't leave any space for you to get in there and do what you're looking for.
Speaking of injuries, I asked this to every one of my podcast members, guests, not members, but there will be a membership coming out shortly, guys. What is Dwayne DeSchon's recovery system?
One is building in the rest. So I do build in, I typically do my jiu-jitsu on Monday, Wednesdays. I just started doing a Friday deals, that's just recent, and a Saturday. So it's typically Monday, Wednesday, Saturdays. I'm also working out Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I work out on Fridays, and then I do open mat on Saturdays. Tuesdays, I'm doing a private, but we're not exerting anything. It's a rest day. And then Thursday's a rest day, Sunday's a rest day, and then on top of all that, let's say I've just been going after it, listening to what my body actually has to say. I've come to learn to listen to it, because if not, it's going to make me listen. You probably are aware, like, you try to push through some of those things, they're going to be like, okay, cool, here you go, and it's going to put you down.
Sure.
So here's the rest you need, and you're like, damn it.
Well, are you taking any supplements, or what's your diet?
I laugh. I'm laughing because I probably piss a lot of people off. I don't diet. I'm with Greg. I don't eat a lot of vegetables. I do eat them, but I don't eat a lot. I don't take supplements. I don't drink coffee like we talked about.
That's ridiculous. How could you not?
I don't do tobacco or anything. I mean, the biggest thing I've got into since I've been out in the military now, and that's for sleep purposes, is I'll do some gummies or some smoke something, but again, that's for sleep, and that's part of the recovery.
Yeah.
To go from not being able to stay asleep and up to something that helps me relax and actually get the rest I need.
Yeah.
That's huge. So that's been nice. But other than that, a few drinks here or there. The big thing is jiu-jitsu. That's my mental health and everything else. Yeah.
If I don't ask you this question, I've had about 15 people text me to ask you this question, and I'm not trying to rib off Sean Ryan at all, but I'm a very big fan, Sean. What's your everyday carry?
I have a SIG 365 XL that I carry with a Romeo sight to it.
Nice.
Yeah, 9-round mag. I don't actually have an extra magazine. Feel confident in that weapon system. It's I can control it just fine. And proven that on the range plenty. Small enough to where it's absolutely concealable.
When you're not hanging out in Georgia, you're at Tidewater Jiu-Jitsu in Chesapeake. Where can people find you?
You can't. No, man. Obviously, this, what is it? My Instagram is GremlinDD. Don't take any offense if I don't accept anybody. I'm a very private person. I like my close-knit relationships. I will accept guys, but don't expect me to like post anything on there. It's there for me to keep in touch with people.
Sure.
But if they're looking for me, again, GremlinDD, or come out to Chesapeake, Tidewater Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, or open mat on Saturdays, and I'm there.
Dwayne, as you know, I'm a big proponent of the service member medically, right? I will fall on my sword and I will die before I know a service member doesn't get the right care he needs, right? I think what you're doing in the Honor Foundation is amazing. Taking guys and helping them transition into the civilian sector is very difficult. I think it's amazing what you're doing. I personally want to thank you, and thank you for making me better. Yeah, I mean that 100%.
Well, thank you for having me here, and I really appreciate the compliments. You know, I'm not one for accepting them a lot of times. I don't like them. It's hard to accept those things. I don't know why over the years, but I'd rather just thank you is fine.
Yeah. Let's wrap it up. Dwayne DeSchon, everybody. Thanks for coming out, buddy. I appreciate it, dude.
Yeah, thank you. I hate reviews.
I thought this was a good conversation.
No, it was a good conversation.